Sit still, breathe deeply. This isn't entertainment. It's not a feel-good story or a distraction from your day. This is a confrontation with what, exactly, with yourself. Not the self you show to the world, not the curated image you offer on social media, but the real you, the part you avoid in the silence. If you let it, this may be the most eye-opening hour of your life. Not because you'll hear something entirely new, but because you'll finally stop running from truths you've known deep down all along. What I offer is not comfort, it's a mirror. What you do with it is up to you. You are not born into freedom, you were born into limitation. Some of it structural, some of it self-imposed. Maybe your parents failed you, maybe they gave you everything. Either way, you inherit both gifts and wounds. But until you take responsibility for all of it, your life is not your own. There is a brutal but liberating truth here. The moment you stop blaming others and accept the full weight of your existence is the moment you become free. Responsibility is not a burden, it is a doorway to meaning. Meaning is what steadies you against the chaos of existence. If you reject that responsibility, you don't get freedom. You get drift, confusion, and resentment. Modern life seduces you with comfort. Devices to numb you, conveniences to pamper you, distractions to keep you docile. But make no mistake, comfort is the enemy. Every time you choose ease over growth, you choose decay. You weren't built to be entertained endlessly. You were built to struggle with something meaningful. You grow on the border between order and chaos, between what you know and what you're afraid to face. That's the edge of becoming. If you want to be more than you are, you must walk toward what terrifies you, and do it voluntarily. We lie to ourselves constantly. Every time you say, "I'm fine," when you're not, every time you laugh to fit in, every time you pretend to agree to avoid conflict, you betray your soul. You become a stranger to yourself. The lies accumulate, and soon you no longer know what's real. Speak the truth, or at least stop saying what you know is false. This will cost you. It may cost friendships, relationships, even jobs, but what you gain is clarity, integrity. The ground beneath your feet will stop shifting, and for the first time you'll stand somewhere real. People confuse freedom with the absence of rules. That's childish. Real freedom is earned. It emerges from discipline, from the voluntary acceptance of constraints that make you stronger. A musician is not free to improvise until he first masters the scale. A boxer is not free in the ring until he first submits to brutal training. Freedom through discipline, that's the paradox. If you want to become someone formidable, someone who can navigate this chaotic world, you must choose the hard path. The path of structure, sacrifice, and slow transformation. There is a darkness in life. Suffering, betrayal, loss. Some of it will be your fault. Some of it will not. But the one thing you cannot do is make suffering your identity. Even if you've been deeply wronged, you cannot stay there. If you do, your soul begins to rot. The only way forward is to transform the pain. Let it temper you like steel. Let it give you depth, resilience, and empathy. That's how you become dangerous, not in a violent sense, but in a moral one. Someone others can rely on, someone who tells the truth, someone who can stand firm in the storm. This life will end. That's not a metaphor, it's a fact. And if you remember that, really remember it, your life changes. You stop wasting time. You stop tolerating lies. You start to see each moment as precious, as something to live on purpose. And then something remarkable happens. The chaos doesn't go away, but you stop being afraid of it. You start to order your life, not perfectly, but deliberately. You face the dragon in yourself. You confront what you've avoided. And slowly, one courageous act at a time, you become the kind of person the world desperately needs. You crave comfort. You seek it in small, constant ways. Through your phone, through convenience, through routine. It whispers to you that you're fine, that there's no need to push, no reason to suffer. But comfort is deceptive. It doesn't care about your growth. It only cares about keeping you exactly where you are, and where you are may be safe, but it is not alive. Comfort is the slow death of potential. It masquerades as peace, but it is often a quiet form of surrender. You are not made to remain unchanged, every part of you. Your brain, your body, your soul was built for adaptation, and adaptation only comes through challenge. When you stay in comfort, you stop evolving, you stagnate, you rust from the inside out. We live in a world engineered to pacify us. Instant gratification is available at every turn. You can avoid boredom, pain, conflict, and difficulty with a few taps of a screen. But this numbs your instincts. It makes you forget how to suffer well. And if you forget how to suffer well, you forget how to become strong. Because strength is not forged in leisure. It is built through resistance. The greatest parts of yourself will never be discovered in ease. They wait in the places you're avoiding, the difficult conversations, the unmet goals, the responsibilities you keep delaying, that discomfort you feel when you're about to do something hard. That's the doorway to growth, and every time you choose to walk away from it, you choose a little more regret instead. There is no comfort in true meaning. Meaning demands effort. It demands sacrifice. You don't stumble into a life worth living. You build it brick by painful brick. And often the path forward requires discomfort so deep it feels like disintegration. But that's how transformation works. You don't get to become more unless you're first willing to be less of what you are now. Do not confuse temporary pleasure with a good life. They are not the same. One distracts you, the other calls you. And meaning will often feel like suffering in the beginning. It will ask you to carry burdens you think are too heavy, but over time they shape you into someone capable of carrying them with grace. That is the paradox. The more discomfort you choose to face voluntarily, the more solid and capable you become. So the next time you feel that pull toward ease, stop and ask yourself, what is it costing me? What am I avoiding? Because every day you choose comfort over growth, you trade a piece of who you could be for who you already are. And if you do that long enough, you will wake up one day with a life so small you barely recognize it, and no more time left to change it. You are lying far more than you think, not always with words, and not always with intention, but still you lie. Every time you say you're fine when you're not. Every time you nod along to something you disagree with. Every time you smile to keep the peace while something inside you screams. That is a form of deceit. And the more you do it, the more the truth becomes a stranger to you. The lies begin small. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow. You pretend your resentment isn't growing. You act as if you're content in a relationship that's dead or in a job that is slowly consuming your soul. You justify it with practicality, with kindness, with timing. But underneath those justifications is fear. The fear of disruption, of rejection, of standing alone. So you keep your head down and participate in a life that doesn't quite belong to you. You might not notice the consequences immediately. On the surface, things seem fine, people like you. You avoid confrontation, you fit in, but something starts to rot in the foundation. You feel it late at night when you're alone. You feel it when someone praises you for something you don't believe in. You feel it when your words come out and you no longer recognize them as your own. The weight of dishonesty accumulates slowly and then all at once. Lying distorts your relationship with reality. The more you say what you don't mean, the more you forget what you mean. You lose the ability to trust your own voice. And when that happens, you become manipulable. By others, by institutions, by your own impulses. You drift into a life shaped not by conviction, but by convenience. And that is the essence of self. Betrayal. The world does not need more agreeable people. It needs people who can speak clearly, even when their voice shakes. It needs people who can hold onto the truth like an anchor in a storm. This doesn't mean being cruel. It means being honest even when it's uncomfortable, especially then, because truth in its purest form is not just descriptive, it is transformative. It reshapes the speaker and the listener alike. Start with small acts. Say what you mean in conversations that matter. Stop pretending to like things you don't. Admit what you don't know. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. These are not minor gestures, they are foundational. The moment you stop lying, the fog begins to lift. You may lose people, you may lose status, but you will gain something far more valuable, a self that is whole. If you want to build a life that is resilient, meaningful, and yours, you must ground it in truth. That doesn't mean you will always know what the truth is, but it means you will stop saying what you know is false. And that one commitment, if made with seriousness and courage, can begin to reverse the slow decay of a dishonest life. The road will not be easy, but it will be real, and that is enough. People often speak of freedom as if it means doing whatever you want, whenever you feel like it. As if freedom is the absence of rules, the absence of structure. But that kind of freedom quickly decays into chaos. The person who acts only on impulse, who follows every craving without resistance, is not free. He is a slave to his desires, pulled in every direction by momentary urges, never anchored, never in control. Real freedom is not found in the absence of discipline, but in the mastery of it. Discipline is the ability to choose long-term meaning over short-term pleasure. It is the capacity to say no to distractions, to comfort, to self-pity, so that you can say yes to what actually matters. You cannot build anything lasting without it. A relationship, a career, a healthy body, a calm mind. All of these require daily, often invisible effort. They require showing up when you don't feel like it, staying focused when the world is trying to seduce you away. There is no hack for that. There is only discipline. Discipline is not repression. It is refinement. It does not kill who you are, it reveals who you could be. It forces you to confront your weakness, your inconsistency, your excuses. And through that confrontation, it gives you power, not over others, but over yourself. That is where real strength lies, not in dominance, not in bravado, but in restraint, in the ability to delay gratification, to tolerate discomfort, to stay steady when everything inside you wants to run. People avoid discipline because it demands discomfort. Waking up early, putting in hours when you're tired, resisting temptations, pushing through boredom. None of it is glamorous, but what is the alternative? A life dictated by mood swings, by chaos, by regret. You don't get to escape discipline. You either choose the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The only question is which pain builds you and which pain breaks you. Over time, discipline becomes identity. The first few weeks are difficult. You're forcing yourself. It feels unnatural, but eventually it becomes who you are. You no longer think about whether or not to act, you just act. And with that shift comes a strange and profound kind of freedom. You're no longer at the mercy of how you feel. You rise above mood. You become reliable to yourself. You can trust your own word. This reliability opens doors. The person who is disciplined creates options. They're the one who can be counted on, the one who is prepared, the one who's earned confidence through consistency. They gain freedom not by avoiding effort, but by embracing it. A disciplined person can take risks because they've built a foundation strong enough to catch them if they fall. They are free to create, to lead, to endure, because they have built themselves to do so. In the end, discipline is not a prison. It is the path out of one. It is the method by which you transform potential into reality, and there is no lasting freedom without that transformation. A chaotic, undisciplined life might feel free for a moment, but it will eventually collapse. A disciplined life, by contrast, might feel constrained at first, but over time it expands. It gives you strength, stability, and the profound freedom of self-mastery. There is a difference between being a victim and choosing to live as one. Life can be cruel. People betray, abuse, abandon, deceive. These things happen, and when they do, you are victimized. You suffer unjustly. That is a real condition. But the tragedy is deepened when you make that pain the center of your identity. When you carry it forward as a defining feature of who you are, it starts to shape everything. Your relationships, your world, your future. The injury becomes the blueprint. pain demands recognition. You want the world to acknowledge what happened. You want someone to say, you didn't deserve that. And perhaps you do deserve that. But even if the world never acknowledges it, you still have a choice. You can either allow the wound to become a permanent justification for passivity, resentment, and fear, or you can begin the brutal work of climbing out from under it. That climb will not feel fair, but fairness is not the measure. Movement is. When you adopt the victim identity, you outsource your power. You start to believe that your life can only improve when others change, when justice is served, when apologies are made. But you may never get that justice. You may never hear those apologies, and if your healing depends on them, you may never heal. Taking responsibility for your future does not mean accepting blame for your past. It means refusing to let the worst thing that happened to you be the final word on who you are. Resentment is seductive. It tells you that you are owed something, that others should feel guilty, that you are justified in your bitterness. But resentment is a slow poison. It corrodes your sense of possibility. It blinds you to opportunities, and most dangerously, it gives you an excuse to stay stagnant. You tell yourself that because life treated you unfairly, you are exempt from the responsibility to grow, to contribute, to act with courage. But you're not. No one is. There is a kind of strength that only comes from transmuting pain. When you decide to carry your suffering with dignity, when you choose to build instead of collapse, you earn a kind of moral authority that no comfort could ever give you. People who have suffered and still rise are dangerous in the best sense. They are no longer easily manipulated. They do not panic in chaos. They have already faced hell and made it back. They know who they are. Forgiveness is part of this process, not always for others, but for yourself. Forgiving yourself for not acting sooner, for how you coped, for how long you stayed. Healing is not linear. Sometimes it feels like you're going backward. But if you're choosing to face what happened rather than bury it, you're already on the path. The goal is not to forget the pain. The goal is to no longer be owned by it. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become in response to it. You may have every reason to be angry, to be broken, to give up. But that doesn't mean you must. Your reasons are not your destiny. The world is full of people who have suffered greatly and still rose. And that option is open to you, not easily, not quickly, not without cost. But it is real, and the moment you begin to move forward even a little, you are no longer just a victim. You are a survivor. And perhaps, eventually, something more. Start where you are. Not where you wish you were, not where others think you should be. Look around, literally. Is your room a mess? Is your schedule chaotic? Are you eating like you don't care whether you're alive next week? Don't underestimate what disorder does to the mind. Chaos outside becomes chaos inside. You don't need to solve the world's problems before breakfast, but you can make your bed. You can clean your kitchen. You can bring one small corner of the world under control. That's where it begins. Order is not rigidity. It's not about becoming sterile or robotic. It's about voluntarily putting structure where there was once aimlessness. A clean space is not just about hygiene. It's a statement. It says you're not a victim of circumstance. It says you care. It says you believe your life matters enough to be managed, rather than drifted through. People want to fix their careers, their relationships, their mental health. Fine. But if you're surrounded by clutter, running on no schedule, and saying yes to everything, how serious are you, really? You must ask yourself, what are the patterns in your life that you're pretending not to see? What cycles do you repeat and excuse? Who do you blame when it all falls apart again? Chaos will consume whatever space you don't take responsibility for. That includes your time, your finances, your habits, and your emotions. The longer you avoid responsibility, the deeper the mess becomes, but the inverse is also true. The moment you begin to impose order, even slightly, things begin to improve. Slowly, yes, but steadily. No one's coming to rescue you. That's not a cynical statement. It's a call to action. Waiting for the perfect moment, the right motivation, or someone else to lead you out of your confusion is how people waste decades. Order is something you choose, not because it feels good in the moment, but because it creates the conditions in which good things become possible. It's not glamorous, it's not exciting, but it's transformational. People imagine that discipline and structure will shrink their lives. They're wrong. Discipline expands your capacity. Structure gives you room to breathe. You stop chasing fires and start building foundations. When your basic life is in order, when your finances aren't in chaos, your sleep is regular, your body is fed and moved, your environment is manageable, your mind is freed to tackle the deeper, harder problems. You gain the strength to face complexity only after you've managed simplicity. Ordering your life also makes you more trustworthy to yourself and others. If you say you'll do something, do it. If you plan a goal, track it. Small acts of integrity build the internal muscle needed to carry greater weight. The person who can't manage their morning routine won't manage a family. The person who dodges their inbox won't run a company. Order isn't just for your benefit. It's how you become a person others can rely on. You can't control everything, and you don't need to. The world is unpredictable. Tragedy can strike, but that's all the more reason to bring order where you can. It gives you a base to stand on when the storm comes. A messy life collapses under pressure. A well-ordered one bends, but doesn't break. So start today. Pick something simple and bring it under control. And then do the next thing, because no matter how far gone you feel, order is always one decision away. Happiness is fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather, warm for a moment, then cold again without warning. You chase it in meals, in compliments, in distractions, in achievements. But the more you make happiness the goal, the more it eludes you, because happiness is not something you can pursue directly. It's a side effect, a byproduct of something deeper, something more stable. That something is meaning. Meaning asks something from you. It demands effort, sacrifice, even pain. It doesn't offer immediate pleasure. In fact, it often begins with discomfort. The work is hard. The relationships are messy. The responsibility is heavy. But under that weight, you find purpose. You discover that being useful to something greater than yourself gives you a kind of quiet satisfaction that pleasure never can. It's not euphoric. It's not exciting. It's something stronger, enduring. People confuse comfort with happiness, and happiness with meaning. But comfort is passive. Happiness is volatile. Only meaning can withstand suffering. When everything falls apart, and it will at some point, pleasure will vanish, entertainment won't help. But if your life is built on meaning, you'll have a reason to endure, a reason to keep moving, a reason that holds even when nothing else does. You find meaning when you take responsibility, when you willingly accept a burden that matters. It could be your family, your work, your community, your beliefs. Whatever it is, it grounds you. It aligns your actions with your values. That alignment may not make you happy in the moment, but it makes you whole. It gives coherence to your life, and coherence is far more rare and more powerful than happiness. There will be days when meaning feels heavy. You'll wish you could walk away, trade responsibility for ease, depth for distraction. But every time you choose to stay with it, you grow, you stretch your soul, you build character, and over time, you become someone you can respect. Not someone who chased feelings, but someone who stood for something. Someone who endured, contributed, served. Happiness depends on circumstances. It's fragile. Meaning survives circumstances. It strengthens you in them. The person living for happiness will be devastated when life gets hard. The person living for meaning will suffer, but they won't be shattered, because meaning makes suffering bearable. It even makes it redemptive. It gives pain a purpose, and with purpose you can endure almost anything. If you must choose between a life of shallow pleasures or a life of meaningful burdens, choose the burden, choose the weight, choose the responsibility that scares you a little, because in that choice you are not just surviving, you are becoming, And what you become in the pursuit of meaning is someone far more resilient, far more needed, and far more alive than someone who merely chases happiness. Comparison is natural. You look around and see others achieving, growing, succeeding, doing things you wish you could do. And without even thinking, you start measuring your worth against theirs. You see someone's highlight reel and forget it's not the whole movie. You see the surface, not the story, but still you feel behind, like you've failed, like you're not enough. That kind of comparison is toxic. It erodes motivation, breeds envy, and leaves you paralyzed instead of inspired. The problem isn't that other people are doing well. The problem is you're using their progress as a mirror for your own, but that's not your mirror. You don't share their story, their circumstances, their history. You don't know what price they paid to be where they are, or what corners they cut. Their timeline is not yours. When you compare yourself to them, you set a standard that is often both inaccurate and impossible. And when you inevitably fall short, you draw false conclusions about your value. You are not meant to compete with the entire world. You are meant to grow in relation to your own potential. The only fair and useful comparison is this: who were you yesterday, and who are you today? That's a question that allows for progress, not punishment. It allows for context. Maybe today you're 1% better. Maybe you handled stress a little more calmly. Maybe you didn't give in to the same excuse you used to. That's growth, that's real, and that's the only metric that matters. This doesn't mean you stop aiming high. It doesn't mean you settle. It means your ambition is directed inward, not outward. You push yourself to be better, not just to look better. You strive because you have more to give, not because you're trying to outshine someone else. That kind of striving is sustainable. It comes from self-respect, not self-loathing, and over time it compounds. The person who improves by a fraction each day eventually surpasses the one chasing someone else's shadow. If you keep looking outward, you'll never be satisfied, because no matter how far you go, there's always someone ahead. Someone richer, more talented, more accomplished, more admired. You will never be the best at everything, but you can be better than you were, and that's enough. That's the only real competition. Your past self. Can you be more honest, more disciplined, more courageous, more focused than you were last year, last month, last week? That's where fulfillment lives. When you start measuring your progress against your own path, something shifts. You stop resenting others and start learning from them. Their success no longer threatens you, it teaches you. You become more generous, more grounded, and paradoxically, more driven. Because now, you're competing with a version of yourself you know intimately. You know where you've been weak, where you've been lazy, where you've been afraid, and you also know where you've overcome those things. That knowledge is fuel. So stop scrolling past other people's lives and using them as reasons to hate your own. Look at who you were and decide who you want to be. If you're a little more honest today, a little more disciplined, a little more kind, that matters. That's how real change happens. You grow not by chasing someone else's path, but by walking your own with clarity and purpose. And every time you do that, you move closer to becoming someone you can truly respect.